This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to answer the question, will Bitcoin spam get priced out? And if you're currently suffering from what I'm calling spam agnosticism, where you have trouble identifying what is spam and what is not, I'd encourage you to watch this video first, which I'll link to in the description notes below. Now, there's currently not a whole lot of demand for Bitcoin block space, in part because newcomers only care about MicroStrategy, IBIT, the Bitcoin spot ETFs, store value narratives, and have no clue that Bitcoin needs to be used as a medium of exchange if we want it to survive. So miners are sad because there's not a whole lot of demand for Bitcoin block space, and so there's not a whole lot of transaction fee revenue. So here's the theory. While we're waiting for demand for Bitcoin block space to develop, it's very important to take care of our miners. This is what people say. So let's temporarily let them, in other words, have crypto VCs pay them to put spam in Bitcoin blocks. This will keep blocks full and the miners fat and happy until what happens? Real demand arrives. It's going to be amazing. All of those monetary transactions are going to fight for limited block space and thus drive up transaction fees a lot. And magically, completely magically, all the spam will get priced out. This is what I call the crowding out theory of spam prevention. It's a beautiful yarn that has been spun since 2023 by some of the biggest names in Bitcoin. And yet, oddly enough, everything has trended, in fact, in the opposite direction. Spam usage of block space keeps going up. Monetary usage of block space keeps going down. And more newcomers have no idea how to interact with the chain, but just buy stuff in their brokerage accounts instead. And here's what that looks like on chain. We have very unhealthy blocks. I think this is a misleading metric. I know it measures something specifically, but you shouldn't tell people that these sort of blocks are healthy. Here's the expected block. Here's the actual block. And it's basically full of inscriptions. And it's actually not even full. It's only a third full. And what's in there are inscriptions. So this is an extremely unhealthy block from a couple of weeks ago. To make matters worse, this particular block was mined by the CCP, the Chinese Bitcoin mafia known as Ant Pool, which controls most of the other Chinese mining pools, and they use the same block mining, the same block template for all of their mining. And as B10C points out here, in the current Bitcoin mining landscape with proxy pools like Ant Pool and Friends, 6 mining pools produce and mine more than 95% of the block templates. Bitcoin mining is highly centralized today. Now, fortunately, we have Foundry here in the US to sort of counteract that. But they're highly regulated, they're highly KYC, and they don't seem to be especially averse to spam either. So this is a problem because now there are just a few mining pools that get to decide which transactions go into most Bitcoin blocks. So malicious mining pools, and most of them these days are malicious, can fill up every block with spam if they want to, which then boosts revenues in the short term, but unfortunately hurts the protocol in the long term, is sort of modern tragedy of the commons as we have the miners taking a dump on the Bitcoin blockchain. This is a problem of block template centralization that Ocean Mining is trying to solve. And I think you have to be pretty naive to be certain that Bitcoin spam will get priced out in this sort of environment where Bitcoin culture continues to be degraded, where people are saying something like real Bitcoiners use MSTY for monthly income. They've so completely lost the plot. And where the majority of mining pools are very, very poor stewards of this miraculous protocol that Satoshi has gifted us. And these miners continue to fill up blocks with garbage in order to meet their quarterly earnings, like this recent block from Mara, where they put this awful non-standard inscription. Meanwhile, the CEO, Fred Thiel, continues to dump his shares, taking millions and millions of dollars off the table. So this, you can think of Mara as dumping in two ways. The CEO and the insiders dump their shares and take profits on their stock options while they continue to dump garbage into the Bitcoin blockchain and be very, very poor stewards of this protocol, Bitcoin. Now, add to this context a group of Bitcoin core devs who want to loosen the filters and give these spammers more space to put their spam in the op return while entirely removing the ability for Bitcoin plebs to configure their own mempools to fight the spam. But aren't these devs just worried about UTXO bloat? UTXO is just a chunk of Bitcoin that hasn't been spent yet, and they can be a burden on people running nodes, especially on the RAM. They require a lot more RAM if there are a lot more UTXOs. So aren't these devs just worried about UTXO bloat and thus trying to herd spammers towards op return and away from more toxic methods of embedding data that bloats the UTXO set? You might think so if these same Bitcoin core devs hadn't for the past 2 years been rejecting pull requests like Luke Dasher's that sought to filter out spam that has blown up the UTXO set. And we can see this really began in early 2023 with the invention of ordinals and inscriptions. That's when this purple line, which is the UTXO, the total number of UTXOs on Bitcoin, that's when the slope totally changed and it almost went vertical. Bitcoin core devs were completely asleep at the switch here, gaslighting everyone. Where's Bitcoin core been the past 2 years? So they're only worried about UTXO bloat now in the context of wanting to widen the filters. And when serious Bitcoiners wanted to filter out spam, those pull requests were just too contentious and they ended up getting buried. But when malicious Bitcoiners want to relax the filters, all of a sudden there's a lot of pearl clutching about UTXO bloat from these same Bitcoin core devs. This is the contradiction that is really disturbing, which makes me believe that a lot of them are actually malicious. The pro spammers will tell us, don't worry, all that spam will get priced out magically in the future by real monetary transactions. Now, of course, just asserting something doesn't make it true. This has been a talking point that has been filling up my comment section. So I'd like to ask, what's the theory behind this decrapification of the Bitcoin blockchain? In my experience, in my lived experience, is always the opposite. If you don't weed your garden regularly, the nice plants don't eventually crowd out the weeds. Rather, the weeds crowd out the good plants. The same is true with email. If you don't keep updating the filters, your inbox fills up with spam and becomes unusable. This is how most systems trend. They always degrade. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners have this magical thinking view of the world these days that I summarize like this. If we just allow more casinos and prostitution in Las Vegas will almost certainly become Silicon Valley someday. You don't get one result by encouraging the other result. This is just basic economics. And when it comes to Bitcoin spam, you can quite plausibly argue the opposite of the crowding out theory of spam. What if the high transaction fees caused by spam, rather than crowding out spam, actually end up crowding out monetary transactions, which is in fact what happened many times in 2023, maybe early 2024 as well, if I'm remembering correctly, when transaction fees spiked north of 200, 300, 400, 500 sats per VByte, rendering the chain completely unusable for days on end. I remember this very well, especially this happened around the Bitcoin halving in 2024. And this leads to a vicious circle where the small cypherpunk remnant who's been actually using the chain rather than playing around with MSTY decide that it's no longer affordable or viable to use Bitcoin on chain and just pack up and leave, as many of us could not use the chain for days on end back in 2023 and 2024. It was simply too expensive. We have real evidence that that's what happens with online forums when the spam overtakes real discussion. So why are we so sure that the crowding out theory of spam is actually correct? And in the context of block template centralization, which we alluded to earlier in this video, are malicious miners really going to magically choose to stop mining spam when in fact it's their major revenue driver, and especially when they have quarterly earnings to meet? Remember, humanity has only one shot at this and we cannot mess it up. I think the most disturbing thing is that it's the crypto VCs like David Bailey and others in the Bitcoin space, in the crypto space, who are assuring us that the spam is going to magically get priced out. I believe it was one of David's talking points from 2023. But what if instead they're just talking their own books? This is David Bailey's various conferences, and here's his portfolio. Here's his VC portfolio, which is full of absolute garbage. OrdinalsBot, Ordinox, Or.io, Taproot Wizards, Build on Bitcoin, Bob, etc. This is garbage. These are garbage companies that are being funded, and David's basically speaking out of both sides of his mouth, saying Bitcoin spam is going to get priced out, but I'm going to continue to fund Bitcoin spam. So if you go to a Bitcoin conference run by someone like David Bailey, where he gives spammers like Taproot Wizards a platform and then he funds them from the VC side of his portfolio, you are actually helping to enable this ongoing spam attack on Bitcoin, which is a highly social attack as well. And if you go to one of these conferences, especially I've heard Bitcoin Asia is just full of all the level 2 scammers, etc. If Bitcoiners don't rise up on the social layer and call out these bad actors in Bitcoin, these bad actors will continue to corrupt newcomers to Bitcoin by normalizing this idea that it's okay to spam the chain with garbage and then rationalizing it with absurd things like, well, the spam will just get priced out, hopefully after I've already taken my crypto portfolio public and dumped all of it. So these are the two things we need to do as serious Bitcoiners. We need to fix the filters. We need to apply pressure to Bitcoin Core to fix the filters. And if they're not going to help out, we just move to Bitcoin knots or we move to other implementations. And in addition to needing to fix the filters, we need to continue to call out the bad actors, whatever the personal consequences. And you have to understand, when I call out David Bailey, it's very bad for my personal situation and for my existence in this space. And so if you think I'm benefiting from it, it actually hurts my subscriber growth. It hurts me in many ways, and many people are now attacking me because of it. But all my net worth is in Bitcoin. This is something that really matters to me, and I think everything in this video that I've said is true. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video, and let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.